مساء الخير وأهلا بكم إلى حلقة جديدة من واشنطن أونلاين. معي أنا هدي العويس على شبكة نورث بريس. بينما تمضي العواصم العربية بإعادة علاقتها مع دمشق بعد أكثر من عقد على القطيعة الدبلوماسية، تحاول بعض المنظمات والكيانات السياسية الأمريكية الضغط على إدارة الرئيس بايدن لعرقلة قطار التطبيع مع دمشق، وذلك من خلال سلسلة من التحركات الأخيرة المطالبة باستمرار تطبيق العقوبات والضغوطات على دمشق والمطبعين معها. فكيف تبدو المتغيرات الأخيرة من الولايات المتحدة والعاصمة السورية دمشق؟ هذا ما نبحثه في حلقة اليوم من واشنطن أونلاين، وضيوفي لهذه الحلقة ومن نيويورك ينضم إلينا ألكسندر لونغلويس الكاتب والباحث السياسي الأمريكي. ابقوا معنا لمتابعة الحلقة. أبدأ هذه الحلقة مع ضيفي السيد ألكسندر لونغلويس ينضم إلينا من نيويورك. أهلا وسهلا بك سيد ألكسندر، وأبدأ بالسؤال عن الشهادة الأخيرة لجول ريبرن المبعوث الأمريكي السابق إلى سوريا. قال أمام أعضاء الكونغرس الأمريكي قبل أيام بأن إدارة الرئيس جو بايدن كانت أكثر تراخيا من غيرها مع النظام السوري، وأرسلت رسائل مختلطة قادت إلى تطبيع الدول العربية مع دمشق. هل فعلا هذا التطبيع، عودة العلاقات العربية مع سوريا، كان سببها إدارة جو بايدن؟
Yeah, so in my opinion, the Biden administration has not had a weaker or stronger stance on Syria than the previous two administrations, and that's because I don't believe any of the administrations had a very strong pro-Syrian stance per se. I think that the issue here is that the Gulf, specifically Saudi Arabia, but namely the Gulf and Arab states, very, very much see that the U.S. is shifting its focus towards East Asia. And so therefore they're hedging. And because of this, they're looking to countries like China. They're looking to flex their own muscles within the region. And this is a part of a long-running strategy by the U.S. government to commit to offshore balancing in the region, namely working through partners in the region to address regional problems and readdress where Washington stands or how much effort they're putting into regional issues. This unfortunately has left Syria behind. And don't get me wrong, the Biden administration has not had a clear or effective strategy on Syria. It claims to want to counter the Islamic State. It claims to have that as its priority, but realistically, previous administrations, including this one, have been there also to counter Iranian influence coming from the Iraqi and through the Iraqi-Syrian border. And so the point here is mostly, for the U.S. at least, sees this as more of an interest in preventing that Iranian influence and fighting the Islamic State. And so when you have a situation in which the U.S. is gradually shifting into East Asia, on top of vagueness on Syria for multiple administrations, not just the Biden administration, but also the Trump administration with respect to its presence on the ground during the later years of that administration, you end up with a situation in which states begin to reassess the geopolitical situation on the ground. Because of that, you've seen the Saudi foreign minister visit Syria, because the Saudis want to lead on the region when it comes to a regional thaw, and that's the direction that the region is moving in, is brutal, pragmatic policies that unfortunately don't always put people first, but they put security and stability interests first.
هل ستغير مسألة التقارب السعودي السوري من مصير وحياة السوريين؟ وهنا لا أتحدث فقط عن الملفات السياسية، عن طموحات المعارضة السورية وعملية الانتقال السياسي، ولكن أيضا عن الأوضاع داخل سوريا. الأمم المتحدة تتحدث عن 900 مليار دولار تحتاجها سوريا ليعود الاقتصاد السوري إلى العمل. هل من الممكن أن نرى السعودية تقدم هذا الحجم من المساعدات لإعادة إعمار البلاد؟
So we've seen the Saudis try to send aid following the earthquake on February 6th. And the Saudis have been an entity alongside other entities to donate aid and try to contribute to a better humanitarian situation. But in the end of the day, there are still Caesar Act sanctions against regime officials in entire sectors. There is still, I think, a strong desire in Europe and the U.S. to uphold those sanctions. And there's deeply rooted corruption inside of Syria and the Syrian government. And so the Saudis and the Gulf can claim that this is, to improve humanitarian conditions on the ground, and that's why we want to talk to people like Assad. But in the end of the day, that's the improvements that we're going to see in the humanitarian or economic front are going to be marginal because of the corruption, because of the sanctions. And so in the end of the day, these interactions are, I think, face value. It is an attempt to kind of create a regional kind of thaw more than it is to create real serious change in Syria. Although there are certain realpolitik interests here, right? The Saudis, just like the Emiratis, also view interacting with Damascus in terms of lowering Iranian influence in the country which I think is largely folly, but another approach as well. But in terms of economics, there are severe limitations preventing any kind of wider reconstruction. We could see like increased efforts towards early recovery, but that's already been the trend. And I would say that's one that will continue to grow regardless of what's going on in terms of renormalization with Assad.
ألكسندر، هناك عدد من الدعاوى السياسية والقضائية الجنائية المرفوعة ضد نظام الأسد في دول أوروبية وكذلك في الولايات المتحدة. إلى أين ممكن أن تقود هذه الدعاوى؟ ما تبعاتها السياسية على العلاقة الأمريكية والغربية مع نظام الأسد؟
Yeah, and so these lawsuits are commendable. We've seen some success in Germany and other parts of Europe with your universal jurisdiction. And this is a welcome case. The unfortunate reality is that it is a case that likely will not find the top tier people responsible for all of this, or will not bring them to justice. This is the unfortunate reality. Is we've seen universal jurisdiction cases, which need to be happening, target lower level officials that, while welcome, don't actually hit the root of the problem, which is the fact that Assad and people around him really are the architects of just this industrial scale system of torture and disappearance. There's still 135,000, approximately 135,000 people missing, disappeared or dead across Syria's prison systems. While I want to believe that cases like this can bring some justice, I have a hard time believing that it will hit the scale that is necessary. And that's just the unfortunate reality. Unfortunately, without deeper action on Syria or a reprioritization of the country, the head of state and the inner circle are going to survive lawsuits like this, and that's just unfortunate.
ألكسندر، ماذا عن مصير عقوبات قيصر المطبقة على سوريا؟ هل يعيد الغرب النظر في هذه العقوبات، خاصة أن التقارير البريطانية الأخيرة تتحدث عن عائدات للمخدرات، تجارة المخدرات المتهم بها النظام السوري، وأنها تجاوزت الناتج الإجمالي المحلي لسوريا ولبنان مجتمعين؟ إذن ما الجدوى من هذه العقوبات؟
Yeah, so this is unfortunately a very strong example of the criminalization of regimes that experience sanctions and are kind of cornered, right? At the same time, it's not a reason to lift sanctions by any means. The Captagon trade has become a very serious problem, particularly stemming from Syria, but also some parts of Lebanon. The discussion around it, unfortunately, is very based in a lot of speculation. Valuations do not go as high as, 20, 30, 40 billion, 50 billion, or 57 billion even. Those are absurd numbers, not based in real data. But it is still absolutely and most likely eclipsing the economy of Syria today, and that's in the last 3 years. And so it is a major issue. We just need to be very skeptical of efforts to inflate it, especially as those sometimes feel like they are more political than based in real analysis. And so, it's something that requires a lot more effort from the international community in terms of addressing the problem. We've seen in Latin American countries what happens when narco states develop. That cannot be something that happens in the region. And so how you approach that, I don't know. I think this is a major driver behind renormalization with respect to Saudi Arabia. It's a pressure point, essentially, that Assad knows he can use against Riyadh. And I think that you could see some shift in that approach if normalization happens, but this is again all speculation.
نعم، شكرا جزيلا لك ضيفي السيد ألكسندر لونغلويس، كنت معنا من نيويورك.
Thank you.
وختاما شكرا لكل من تابع حلقة اليوم من واشنطن أونلاين. ألقاكم في حلقة جديدة الأسبوع المقبل، إلى اللقاء.